Hi everyone. Several months ago we were very pleased and proud to present to you wonderful artifacts from the Shirley Temple collection, items that she and her family had personally preserved and saved ever since the 1930s. In that particular video presentation, book, and subsequent auction and museum exhibits, we showed you items from Shirley's childhood, 1930 to 1940. Now, the story continues, appropriately named Shirley Temple Take Two. And we have items that we're going to show you also still preserved from the family archives that were mementos of her life from 1940 to 1960, with a few throwbacks, because as every home has, when you start looking in all of the cubby holes and places where treasures could be stored, you find things you forgot the first time. So we do have additional treasures from some of Shirley's earlier years. And what I want to show you today are just a minor sampling of the wonderful objects that are going to be available in the book. Let me show you the cover of the book, which is now published and available to you, called Shirley Temple Take Two. And in this book we have over 400 items that are presented from this time period. And so as you can see from this video, you're only going to see a small fraction here, but just it'll give you a little bit of a taste. Appropriately, we wanted to begin with the end of the first era. So in 1939, Shirley was making the film The Bluebird. And we have two of the costumes from that film, which are shown here. One, a lovely rose silk nightgown, and the other is incredibly embroidered with applique and lace robe, both appearing in the film The Bluebird. Another wonderful item in the collection, with some timeliness to the Bluebird, is this piece of artwork. It was scribbled on old brown wrapping paper, probably from a shopping bag, and there is a picture of Shirley as an angel. And on the other side is a note written by her mother, 11/20/1939. Shirley traced this absent-mindedly, had just finished making the Bluebird. So another piece of Shirley art, and still signed Shirley Temple. Remember we talked in the first video how she had learned early from one of the actors that she worked with, always sign your artwork. And so she always did, and we're pretty grateful for that today, because we have wonderful pieces of artwork that we can now show you as a result of that. In 1940, Shirley Temple was loaned to MGM. The only film she ever made for them was called Kathleen. And it was really interesting because while they were trying to show a young girl growing into a woman, and they were trying to make transition in various storylines and themes and how she was presented, in point of fact, the very same storylines that had been popular with Shirley as a child were still continued. However, we do have wonderful memorabilia from that film. Here are three of the costumes that she wore in the film: the famous polka dot pajamas, the famous striped lounging outfit, and the beautiful purple silk crepe dress that was just absolutely stunning on her. It's wonderful. And in a bit, I'm going to show you some jewelry that she actually wore in the film too. In the film, one of the props that was very dominant was her fashion mannequin doll, because she wanted, her dream in the movie was to become a fashion designer. And they show her doing various, playing with the doll, not playing with the doll as she played with in the past, but playing with it as she would make dolls, like similar to the way fashion designers would make costumes for ladies. And you can see here she is working on an actual lady body doll. Very gorgeous mannequin, beautifully styled face and hair, very stylistic of the 1940s. Here is the blouse that is shown Shirley wearing when she is working on designing costumes for the doll. And you can see you're seeing here some of the vintage photographs of her working with this doll. There is a wonderful story that's told that at one point in the making of the movie, they ran in, and Shirley was in a bed and going to bed, and someone ran in and said, "We should have a teddy bear in there as a prop." And she said, "I'm not a child anymore. Teddy bears are for children." So she obviously had grown into a different stage where she wanted to present herself in a different way. And Kathleen was the movie. Now, the outstanding costume from that movie I'm about to show you now. A standard formula that was used in many of Shirley's movies throughout the 1930s was a dissolving into a fantasy scene that really had little bearing on the actual film, but did allow Shirley to do a wonderful dance and song routine. This was continued by MGM in the Kathleen movie, where out of no particular sense at all, Shirley has a fantasy that she makes it big on Broadway. And this extraordinary gown is what she wore for that presentation on Broadway. We have a vintage photograph that shows Shirley wearing this as she is descending the staircase for the film. It was not only the gown itself, whose wonderful airy feathers just extend all the way around the back. The same bouquets with a little centered faux rubies that you see in the front are repeated at the back as well. And along with the dress came wonderful silk satin shoes made by Capezio with their faux ruby centers, a little piece worn on the top of her head with the feathers, and of course her wonderful fan. So altogether an absolutely outstanding costume and perfectly preserved by the family through all of these years. It was very interesting. It was in 1942, shortly after that Shirley did a radio series called Junior Miss. And one of the scripts from the beginning of that series really describes almost where Shirley was at this point. Script 1 opens with the announcer's words, and I'm quoting, "If you have any doubts about the awkward age, well, that's when a girl's not allowed to use lipstick and she can't have dates, but she's good and tired of playing with dolls, and she's just sitting around anxiously waiting for life to begin," life in capital letters. And that kind of described where Shirley was in 1939, 1940. She was wanting to extend herself beyond the roles that she had played, and the next ensuing 8 years were just absolutely monumental years for her. She went on to lead films to a great extent and went to Westlake School for Girls, had an entire career there. And in the collection, we do have her graduation dress from Westlake, along with all of the school yearbooks, with wonderful comments that other fellow students have written in there about her. It's just a very, very choice part of her life and a very happy part of her life. I wanted to show you one of the highlights of the auction and the Shirley Temple Take Two collection are the pieces of jewelry that we will be offering. Shirley Temple loved jewelry. She loved it from the time she was a small child and really throughout her entire life. And one of the things we have that I think is one of the highlights of the auction, Shirley Temple Take Two, are some wonderful representative pieces of jewelry that she had from early childhood on through about 1950. There are dozens of wonderful pieces all documented, and by the way, every item in the auction does have its certification from the family that it was from the original Shirley Temple possession. I just brought a small selection here to show you. The first is a beautiful little set of pearls, graduated size pearls. And what's really notable about these is if you look at the film Kathleen, or you look at any of the vintage photographs, publicity photographs from that film, you will see Shirley wearing this exact set of pearls. She also wore them in her personal life because they remained favorites with her. She had an early watch. One of her earliest watches she had was gifted to her by Jimmy Dunn, who she acted with in starred with in many of her important early roles. And Jimmy Dunn gave this watch to her. It's inscribed on the back, "From Jimmy Dunn to Shirley," and a very important piece of memorabilia, and also a very, very famous watchmaker. In 1939, her father gifted this watch to her. What a stunning watch with silver gold, and just the entire watch face and the bracelet of tiny diamonds. It is a Gerard Perregaux watch and inscribed on the back with "Love from Daddy, Christmas 1939. Very beautiful watch. And again, many photographs of Shirley shown wearing this watch. Shirley did an Elgin radio show in the 1940s that was sponsored by Elgin, and they gave her this watch. I want you to see it this way. It's like an early tank watch. Very beautiful, with diamonds and gold, and it was inscribed on the back, "To Shirley, Star from the Stars," from Elgin. Very beautiful watch. This is one of Shirley's important pieces of jewelry, and wonderful information has come to us since the catalog went to press. This is the alphabet bracelet, spelling out Shirley's name with cut alphabet letters in wonderful shades of gold. And we have subsequently found out that this bracelet was made for her by Paul Flatow, who's known as the jeweler to the stars. He made 3 of these bracelets only, 2 of them for his daughter and 1 for Shirley Temple. And it was given to Shirley, and it says on the back, it has an inscription, "To Shirley Temple," with her Rockingham address on there. Very beautiful early bracelet. Charm bracelets were almost like an obsession with Shirley. She loved to have charm bracelets. They were memories of all the places she went, people she had known, and people gifted them to her. So there's a wonderful collection of charm bracelets, and I picked out just a few to show you. This particular one, very, very nice, because it was gifted to her by Bojangles, and it has several examples of Bojangles dancing on the bracelet. Wonderful. We have another one that has charms from her various visits to Hawaii, all of the things that she was reminded of when she went to Hawaii. All of these bracelets are either sterling, silver, or 14 karat gold. They're just beautifully done. This was a wonderful bracelet. When she was doing her 1940 films, her producer in several of those films was Dore Schary, and he gave her this wonderful bracelet with the chain link, and I want to read the inscription that says, "To Shirley, whose heart will always be 16," signed with his initials. Very beautiful bracelet. One of Shirley's most famous charm bracelets is the one that she acquired during the family's trip across country in the late 1930s, and they stayed at the Waldorf Astoria, and Shirley went into the Roy W. Johnson jewelry store there and acquired this charm bracelet, which has all sorts of symbols. I don't know, supposedly reminiscent of New York, but I don't know what their meaning would be on some of them. Obviously the camera, yes. There's a wonderful little miniature Punch and Judy set. There's an hourglass, there's a mesh purse. In one of the books about Shirley, it was written that she acquired 6 charms. Actually, the bracelet has 7. Wonderful. Again, all 14 karat gold. Beautiful. Bracelet that was acquired in the late 40s. With Disney characters, all sorts of Disney characters, and you're able to date them because, for example, we see that Bambi is on there, so it must have been from a particular later period. And all of the traditional Mickey, Bugs Bunny, all of these figures are on there, and they're just really great sterling silver once again. And finally, what I'm showing you, but not finally in the collection because there are many more, is this heavily laden silver bracelet with Asian themes on it. And, you know, this is only hypothesis, we don't know, but probably given to her during her time of the filming of Stowaway. Very popular. And all of these charm bracelets stayed with Shirley her entire life. Another piece I wanted to show you because to me it's emblematic of much of her life in the 1940s, and that is the V-shaped victory pin with diamonds and rubies on the crossbar that spell out in Morse code the letter V for victory. So victory, the letter V is repeated twice on the pin, and very, very significant to Shirley during that time. She spent a lot of time in the 1940s on rallies for raising war bonds, on raising clothes, on clothing campaigns to help clothe war orphans, did a tremendous amount of charity work. One of the wonderful photographs in the auction I just really love is Shirley in Canada on a war rally, and she's sitting around a table with a group of other people, none of whom are particularly named, although they're all pencil inscribed on them who they are, and they are she's holding a little pig, a little tiny piglet in her arms. It's a really sweet photograph and wonderful. But charity work was really, really important to her in the 1940s and became almost the sounding board, the beginning of the wonderful benefit work that she did for the rest of her life. So all of these wonderful pieces of jewelry that we do find are very important in this respect. During the early 1930s, the Temple family spent much of their vacation time in Palm Springs, escaping there for long weekends or holidays to have a respite from the busy film world. And on one of these occasions, Shirley was presented, in fact it's dated, for her birthday, April 23rd, 1935. And it's gifted to her from Jackie Smalley. It says, Shirley at Palm Springs, and it is filled with dozens of old snapshots. These are not professional, these are just family snapshots taken of Shirley playing sports, and I'm just flipping some of the pages to show you. I've never seen anything like it. I think it's extraordinary. When you want to see photographs of Shirley, they're all just loosely mounted in there. And it shows Shirley playing all type of sports. Here she is riding her horse. Just wonderful vintage photographs that has remained in her possession this entire time. Shirley was, if she hadn't been a film star, she could have been an artist. If she had pursued that interest throughout her life, she showed great talent from a very early age. And we have an example of some of the pieces that she both drew, colored, painted, and signed, some of them with original poems and letters to her mother and father, and these are all included in the auction. This wonderful carousel horse is particularly timely. It's dated 1941, and later on she went on to acquire the carousel horse that was a feature of the home in the San Francisco area, and which is one of the items being offered at the auction. This right here, we have a wonderful example given to her mother with, and it says, Mother loves Shirley Temple. We even have the original envelope to Mother, 1941. Beautiful flowers, and that wonderful bunny, of which bunnies were one of Shirley's very, very favorite things. The particular one here is to Daddy dear, and oh, how I wished I only were a wonderful astronomer to study all the stars up high and learn the secrets of the sky. And it ends up, but most of all, I want to do the things you really want me to. And then there's a picture of her, a self-portrait, and she's smiling, and along with a little message, I'm smiling now, and given to her father for Father's Day in 1941. Another one that is to her mother for Mother's Day. Another one when she must have been very young. Dear Mother, I hope you like this better. Shirley Temple. We don't know what Mother didn't like the first time, but Shirley redid something and she hopes she likes it better. And then a wonderful one showing two different scenes from her films. And there she is with the signed Heidi. And again, the signature Shirley Temple signed, and all of these. There are other wonderful pieces of her artwork in the auction. In the collection, we are really happy to have a wonderful selection of costumes, gowns worn by Shirley Temple, not in her films, but in her own personal life. Many of them worn to important publicity events, social events, many of them appearing in the scrapbooks that we have of the 1940 years. As you turn the pages of those scrapbooks, you find Shirley wearing some of these very, very favorite gowns of hers. One of the very favorites, I'm holding a photograph of Shirley wearing it, is the costume known by collectors, Shirley Temple collectors, as the grown-up Little Colonel gown. And you can see why it would be, with its tiers of ruffles on the bottom, and just a kind of a general feeling of Little Colonel dress, but oh so very, very grown-up. It was designed by the very famous Hollywood designer, Adrienne, and he wrote this about the dress when he designed it for her. Adrienne was a lead costumer at MGM from 1928 to 1941, and then he went on to open his own costume studio where he did custom designs for important celebrities. And he described this way at the time. Adrienne dreamed up a misty dress of gray and blue net over taffeta and sprinkled it with posies. It was a stunning dress. Shirley appeared wearing it in many, many publicity photos, and included with the gown when we sell it is a color transparency taken at the time of Shirley actually wearing this gown. Very, very beautiful costume. The one standing next to it is a stunning dress with, surprisingly, let me show you, because you're just thinking it is a one piece, but we roll this back and you see it's a beautiful strapless gown, and then it has the matching black lace cape that goes with it, and the black lace extends throughout the entire skirt, so very beautiful over the rose coral taffeta. Very beautiful gown, wonderful ruffles here on the top. The third gown, a very important gown worn by Shirley on special occasions with this wonderful triangulated sequin applique at the midriff, and this beautiful overlay with spangled sequins on it and the matching stole. This was worn by Shirley on special occasions, including when she did publicity in 1959 for her upcoming storybook series for NBC. This particular dress is just wonderful. I don't know, it has a little flavor of Old West, whatever, but it's just great. It has a wonderful lace-up bodice. It has the cut work with the double ruffles at the right below the waist, and then the double ruffles at the bodice. Shirley wore this on a lot of occasions, including when she presented the Junior Achievement Award for Academy Award, which she had been the first person to ever win. And when she presented it one year, she wore this dress in the publicity photos. And the final dress, one of Shirley's favorite dresses, undoubtedly. Look how tiny she was. Wow. A gorgeous dress. She wore this on many, many occasions. In the newspaper clippings, we found one where she went to a party and she was doing a Mexican hat dance wearing this dress, a very frivolous, wonderful dance. And then she also wore it, most importantly, at Harry Truman's inauguration. So a really favorite dress of Shirley Temple throughout the years. There are perhaps 20 of these wonderful costumes in the collection, and all, one just as beautiful as the other. I just picked out a few that I thought had interesting stories to show you. Sometime in the late 1930s, Shirley Temple came into the acquaintanceship of Claire Omar Musser, who was a really interesting person. He was not only a designer of various sound percussion instruments, but invented new ones, and also was quite taken with the whole concept of astronomy, meteorites, had a vast collection of meteorites, of which I'll tell you something in a minute. But he came to know Shirley Temple probably during the filming of Wee Willie Winkie, when he may have been an instructor to the bugle corps of that film. And at some point, he gifted to her a one-of-a-kind instrument called his vibraharp, which he had invented. We're playing you some of the sounds it makes. It has absolutely wonderful percussion on it. We don't know the background of when he gave it to her, except that we do know in May 1942, there was an article in the Movie Radio Guide. It was called, in this little slightly scandalous title, Shirley's Secret Hobby. And you thought you were going to read all sorts of tantalizing things, but really it said, digging into this deep, dark secret, it developed that La Temple has a full-size vibraphone in her special quarters at home, which she plays a good deal. And it had a wonderful photograph of Shirley playing this exact vibraharp, which has remained in the family through all of these years in its original traveling cases, and is an absolutely very, very rare instrument of itself, and certainly with the Shirley Temple legacy even more. During the early part of the 1950s, Shirley Temple really withdrew from the film world, except for doing various benefits and charity occasions, and lived a private life. Then, about 1958, she returned to the public with her work in NBC on Storybook, where she presented wonderful favorite stories of children on the NBC television network. It was a wonderful program. At the same time that this program came out, Shirley also re-released a line of children's clothing and a line of dolls representing herself. And in her personal collection, she has kept favorite examples of the dolls that were released at that time, again by Ideal, wearing representative costumes from her films. And these are all in just choice, rosy-cheeked condition. So you can see how wonderful they are, including the larger size. And she re-released her line of children's clothing. In the early 30s, the Rosenau firm of Philadelphia had commissioned with the family to produce a line of children's clothing that was symbolic of the clothing that Shirley wore in her films. And they were immensely successful throughout most of the 30s. By the time the 40s came, it kind of began to dwindle away. And then during the 1950s, there was a demand for them again. Rosenau family approached Shirley Temple. She agreed. And when they made costumes, they would send her a sample of them. And these are the samples, all size 4, that were sent to Shirley. They all have the label inside them, Rosenau, Cinderella, inspired by Shirley Temple. And many of them, in addition, have original paper tags on them with the inventory stock number that the costume had in the company archives, and even the price of what the costume sold for per dozen wholesale. Beautiful dresses in so much wonderful detail of embroidery. Many of them utilizing the new nylon fabrics that appeared on the dresses for the Shirley Temple dolls. I pondered about the size 4, and then I came across an advertisement where the company was advertising that these doll costumes would all fit beautifully on the large 36-inch Shirley Temple, and indeed they would. So double purpose for little girls and for the large Shirley Temple. The TV show was very popular. We have in the auction 2 of the notable props from that TV show, one being the famous Winnie the Pooh. And the other being the mounted Gump head on the wooden plaque on the wall. And both of those are offered in the collection. This is just a sampling of the wonderful, wonderful artifacts that are available from Shirley's collection, held again in the family archives for all these many, many years in beautifully preserved condition. The dresses that are being offered here from the Cinderella line, for example, have never been worn. Everything is just in wonderful condition. I hope that you'll be able to attend the auction or to watch it online or to receive the catalog, and we would welcome any questions you might have. Thanks very much for watching this video, and good night.